Testing. Testing. One more time, testing. 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 Ooh. Yeah, but it's coming out on the speakers. Oh, that might be Dr. Trocek. Oh, okay. Okay. Ready? Welcome, everyone. I am pleased to call to order the Curriculum Instruction and Student Life meeting for the 13th of December, 2023. We are using a hybrid meeting platform this evening, but all of us are physically present. So I want to welcome Dr. Flaherty to run our agenda, please.
Welcome. Ms. Abel, could you call a roll?
Microphone?
Oh.
Could you call a roll?
I could call a roll. We have Dr. Silva. I
Here.
am Miss Abel. Ms. Robinson is absent this evening. We are also joined by Dr. Churacek.
Here.
Dr. Flaherty.
Here.
We have our student representatives present around the room, and I don't have your names written down. Sadie Brennan. Eleanor Corbett. Finn. And Dante. And Althea. Thank you. We also
This is
have...
a celebration. I think this is the first time we've had all five.
Everybody is physically present, so I
And
wasn't
present.
prepared
This
to
is
call the
great.
roll. Thank you. We have Dr. Morgan, Ms. Brown, Mr. Thomas, Ms. Oliver, Ms. Mantello. Here. And I'm missing a name. We're all set? Yep. Okay. I think that covers us. Thank you.
Okay. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and could our chorus start us off with the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I felt a little bit like this.
Thank you so much.
Before I introduce the course, we know that it's a bittersweet night, right, for all of you and for all of us in the Beverly community, and we didn't want to go without acknowledging the sadness and the tragic loss that we've suffered as a high school, as a school community, and as a full Beverly community, but most importantly, the loss that you've all suffered this week with the death of Molly. And I know Sarah's with us, and Molly's parents are with us this evening as well. And we wanted to tell you how sorry we are, and that we are holding all of you, especially the Molly's family, in our hearts during this very difficult time. And I think that as you sing for us this evening, we should all keep in mind and think about Molly and how much she loved her music and her music family. I know some have heard me say before, I was a music kid. I was in band and chorus. And some of the friends I made there are still my dearest friends today. And that you really do become a separate family. And so we are hurting for all of you, and know that you're in our hearts tonight and throughout that next coming period of time, which will be very difficult. But we know that you have courage and resilience, and you've been doing an amazing job all week, going to different performances. I heard you started this morning, many of you before 7:30 in the morning, and you're still going almost 12 hours later. And just know that this is always the highlight of our year, when you all come to sing for us. So thank you for coming, and thank you for doing what you do so well for Beverly High School. And I would also like to introduce Olivia, Ms. Mancello, who is our new choral director, and this is your first time coming to school. Second for
With
first
them?
day
Yes.
with them, yes, yeah.
Yes. Take it away. Awesome.
Oh, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty and nice. Santa Claus is coming to town, coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. You're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake. Oh, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming. Santa Claus is coming. Santa Claus is coming to town. Coming to town. City sidewalks, busy sidewalks, dressed in holiday style. In the air there's a feeling of Christmas, Christmas. Children laughing, people passing, meeting smile after smile. And on every street corner you'll hear those silver bells. Silver bells. It's Christmas time in the city, oh, ring-a-ling. Hear them ring. Soon it will be Christmas Day. Strings of street lights, even stoplights, blink up bright red and green. As the shoppers rush home with their treasures, hear the snow crunch, see the kids bunch. This is Santa's big scene, and above all the bustle, you'll hear those silver bells, silver bells. It's Christmas time in the city, oh, ring-a-ling. Hear them ring. Soon it will be Christmas Day.
What are we gonna deck with boughs of holly? What are we gonna deck? Boughs of holly, deck the halls with boughs of holly. Fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Fa la 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 la. Don't we now are gay apparel, fa la la, fa la la la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, deck the halls with boughs of holly, deck the halls with, deck the halls. Deck the halls with boughs of holly. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Don we now our gay apparel. Deck the halls with boughs of holly. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Don we now our gay apparel. Deck the halls with boughs of holly. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Fa la la, fa la la. What are we gonna deck? The halls.
Great. They always teach us when you're running a meeting, end on a high point. So I think we should just call it a night because it's not going to get any better than that. And that was the most festive and best thing that we've heard in a long time. So thank you. And for anybody that's listening that wants to hear more of this amazing talent, Tuesday night, right, is the winter concert. So come and join us at the auditorium at Beverly High School. Thank you all so much. This really is the best part of the year when you all come. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
They sounded phenomenal. Okay, now back to the humdrum of business. Our first order of business will be, in a moment, we'll look for an approval of the minutes from our November 15th meeting. We'll hear from our student reps. We have 4 policies to review tonight, and then we will, Dr. Trocheck will be leading a presentation around math pathway envisioning that we have undertaken. So the first order of business is for a motion to approve the minutes from our November 15th, 2023 CISL meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting records from the 15th of November.
There's been a motion made and seconded. Ms. Abel, could you call a roll?
Don't believe we need to call the roll
'Cause we're
because
all
we
here.
are all present. So by
All those
show
in
of hands,
favor?
all those in favor of approving the meeting records from our last meeting, it's unanimous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have our student updates, and seeing we have everybody with us this evening, I'm going to start with the 8th grade, the middle school, and then we'll move up to the high school, okay? So Finn, would you like to come forward and give us your update?
Yes.
And make sure your microphone has a green circle.
Okay. So last weekend we had CISL the musical on Saturday and Sunday. Although the audio system was a bit glitchy, the students put on a great show. And speaking of music, we also had both our band and strings concert or holiday concerts. They were both great, and the 5th graders are learning how to play their instruments quickly. In the band concert, the 8th graders played a song called "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," and Miss Oliver read little parts of the poem in between sections. We've begun trimester 2, which means that we have new global apps classes. In wellness, the new 1-week health, 1-week PE schedule is much better for students who have been struggling to remember what day they had which class in prior years. Also, in efforts to fundraise their upcoming Nature's Classroom trip, the 6th grade has the Winter Waffle Land event coming up. They did this last year and it was a success, so they plan to do it again.
Thank you. I can share with you, I emailed Mr. Crafter this morning because I watched the concert last night online and it was phenomenal.
Yeah,
And I told him my 2 highlights of the concert were the 8th grade band playing "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" with Mrs. Oliver reading, and his spiffy jacket that he wore.
Oh, yeah.
Althea.
Recently at BMS, students have been engaging in many academic opportunities. For example, the 7th grade peer leaders are taking part in a 3-day-long training to prepare and inform themselves about qualities and abilities needed in a peer leader. They will then continue to use those skills outside of the classroom, and after completing the training, they will take part in events like the ADL conferences. In English, students have also been learning about different cultures and their storytelling traditions, learning about different cultures, and getting to interact with creating their own Latin American characters. In the 8th grade, Cabot teachers have been facilitating Kindness Tuesdays when students have the option to participate in crafts and activities that can help express our emotions and show our love and support for our families and peers.
Thank you very much. Dante.
Trimester 2 has just begun and many things are opening up. The chorus will be playing their concert tomorrow night at 6:30 here at BMS. Spanish students are planning fundraisers for Puerto Rico to help themselves and others to help fund money towards, like, say if they don't travel. The French students have finished one of their fundraisers and already have a second one running. It will most likely be next week, but I'm unsure of the dates. After break, a 8th grade dance will be starting. The supposed date is February 9th. Well, that's all.
Just in time for Valentine's Day, right? Are there any questions for our middle school reps? Okay. If not, Eleanor? Do you like Ellie or Eleanor?
That is fine. Most people call me. I wanted to say that winter sports have just begun, and our basketball teams had their first game against Marblehead. That was last night. I actually don't know how they did. I did not go to the game. They lost. That's okay. On the topic of seniors, the seniors had a networking event today during fourth block. So that was an opportunity for them to meet local, I guess, businesses to hopefully secure an internship for our fourth quarter. That's the Senior Reach internship, but also to look for jobs maybe for after graduation or even now. And the Reach project is starting to come together. Our proposals are due, I think, in like January. But we've been getting a whole bunch of new resources for that in the advisory Google Classroom to start working on it.
Good, I'm glad you're starting early, because right after you get back, it just flies. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a busy spring. Sadie?
Hello, everybody. So as Ellie said, winter sports have just started. I know at least for girls basketball, our next game is coming up fast on Friday. We're going to be taking on Peabody in Peabody. And then also more exciting news from the music department. They just had Pippin auditions yesterday for their winter musical, which will be in March, I believe. So yeah, some more exciting news from them.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Any questions for our high school?
No, thank you so much. And I
Thank you.
understand if you need to leave to get homework done. I know that this time of year is quite busy.
You're welcome to stay.
Yeah, you're
but
welcome to stay also, but yeah, yeah.
If you have homework or you need
If-
to go,
yeah.
you're welcome to do that as well. And thank you all for being in person. It's so nice to see you face to face. Okay, so now we're moving on to our policy updates. It's 4 topics. There's actually 5 policies because two of them kind of go hand in hand with each other. So we're going to be looking at health education, drug-free workplace, organization of instruction, and curriculum adoption. Yes. Yes, yep. So our first policy is health education, and this is in 2 sections. It is IHAM and IHAM-R. -R is really more of a procedure, but it is listed in our policy manual. So for IHAM, what the recommendations were from MASC were that they recommended adding a sentence at the beginning of the policy. And then in the 3rd paragraph, you can see that there was a note on the bottom and from previous reviews that we needed to make sure that the language reflected what we were currently doing in Beverly. And so the recommended sentence would read, health education will be taught as an identified segment of all core wellness classes. Health electives will also be available at the middle school and high school levels. And that's because that core health is taught K through 12 in our wellness classes. And so that is a combination of both physical education and health education. With that update, we could remove the note section that is currently listed in our policy, and then updating the reference sections. And that would update the IHAM. We're going to take this together, though. And for the IHAM-R, that is for the exemption if a parent wanted to remove a child from the sexual education portion of health. They do have that in the law, and they're allowed to do that. And our current policy states that. So the only recommended change in this, to be consistent with previous language that we've done, is to add the word caregiver after the word parent and guardian in the bottom of the first paragraph. And then on both policies, we would update the source and reference section at the bottom to reflect the new dates and any changes to legal references or cross-references. Any questions on those recommendations? Ms. Abel?
So I'm just trying to make sure the track changes show all of the recommendations that you've made here. I'm looking for the word caregiver, and
They do not, but they will in the copy that comes through to you. The track, because we didn't, those are changes that we're adding. It is not in the MASC version, and so we didn't want to confuse that. So that's why the bullets are there, but the final version will show the recommendations that are on the slides.
Okay.
If you want to see those in a different format, I just didn't know how you would see the difference between what we were recommending versus what MASC was recommending, if it was all in track changes.
Yeah, and I think that we might have to use manual track changes and actually format different colors, because I recognize the limitations of track changes, because you can't differentiate if one person's making
Yes.
multiple sets of changes. So we'll work on that. We'll keep working to improve the process so that we
Okay.
can see what it is that we are approving. But with that clarification, thank you, I would like to make a motion that the Standing Curriculum Standing Committee on Curriculum Instruction and Student Life recommends the changes as outlined and described on this slide to IHAM and IHAM-R to go forward to the school committee of the whole or regular school committee for a first reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Thank you, Dr. Silva.
All those in favor?
You can still raise your hands.
All
That's
those
5-0.
opposed?
The motion has passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next policy for review was the drug-free workplace. And we are recommending to the committee that we keep our current version of policy GBEC with updates just to the reference section for dates and cross-references. There's nothing to change in the body of the policy.
Motion to accept?
And the reason we're saying the Beverly version is because we have a sentence that MASC does not. After number 7, it says the prohibition applies to all employees, students, visitors, and others in attendance, and any activity or on any property owned, used, leased, or rented by or from the Beverly Public Schools. And we recommend that that remain in the policy.
Okay, so even though in the attachment it's stricken, we actually are
We wanna
having
keep it.
the recommendation to keep
Yes.
Beverly's current version. Okay.
Yes.
So Dr. Silva has made the motion. I will second that motion. Are there
The
any?
strike-through is the MASC version.
Okay. I don't see the Beverly version then.
It's the same, it's just that we would keep that strike, no, oh, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. The red, the strike-through is the Beverly policy.
Okay.
And
that's how it's-
MASC does not have it, so that's why it's shown as a strikeout, because this is a comparison of Beverly to the MASC policies.
Right. And maybe we should compare them the other direction so we can keep our good stuff. Okay. So I think we have a motion and we have some clarity on the motion on the table and the intention for this to go forward to the school committee of the whole or the regular school committee. Are there any questions from students? Does it seem to make sense? Okay. So I guess we're ready to vote. All those in favor of this recommendation? That's 5-0. Thank you. The motion passes.
The next policy, IE, Organization of Instruction. This has been in the August update of MASC was recommended to remove this policy because the original purpose of the policy has been addressed by subsequent regulations. There was a note in the spreadsheet that the policy subcommittee on December 2021 recommended keeping this policy in the Beverly Manual. The recommendation, though, is to remove it because of the fact that we now bring forward, and we need to bring forward annually, that the middle school configuration is grades 5 through 8 and is considered an elementary school, not secondary, and that's because of time on learning. And so this really is not necessary anymore because we bring it forward in a different venue. So the recommendation is to remove policy IE, organization of instruction.
I'll make a motion to push forward from the Curriculum Instruction and Student Life Subcommittee the request to the Committee of the Whole or the regular school committee to remove policy IE from the Beverly Policy Manual.
Second.
Motion That's been made and seconded.
Thank you, Dr.
All those
Silva.
in favor for the removal request to go forward? Opposed? Thank you. And then our final review for tonight is policies IGA, curriculum development, and IGD, curriculum adoption. The MASC recommendation is to combine these two policies, IGA and IGD, and it would be renamed just under the IGA and be renamed to curriculum development and adoption. And the way that that is being done is it is taking the paragraph and incorporating IGA language into the language that is listed in IGD and renaming it IGA. The additional recommendations are that we do accept that new paragraph of the IGA language. Then there are some grammar edits in the second paragraph. MASC changes its to the professional staff. They change the name system throughout to the word district. They recommend striking the word school before committee. We would recommend keeping the word school in front of committee throughout. And that's so that it does not, it reduces confusion with other committees such as CISL. So if it just said committee, people may wonder what committee we were talking about. And then the updates to the reference section. So we would be looking for a motion to accept the recommendations of combining these two policies under one, and the title IGA, Curriculum Development and Adoption, and also the recommended edits to the current policy as outlined in the previous slide, and
So-
going forward to school committee for its first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? And I think we've updated 4 more policies. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our superintendent to talk about some exciting conversations and vision work that we've been doing around promoting inclusivity and academic equity in math.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you. I'm here pretty much to be sort of the opening act. We have a lot of work that we've been doing. If you remember in my superintendent's goals, one of them is revisioning math K-12 for the district. And as part of that, taking a very close look at a lot of our instructional practices. So to begin, I have been I want to first of all state that this work is sort of a culmination of a lot of people coming together and really utilizing research and thinking deeply about what we can do as we look at ways to just improve outcomes for our students. And so the goal of the sort of group that we had working on it is really to create a more equitable experience for our students grades 7 through 12, while also raising academic achievement for every student. So I'm going to bring you back to the equity audit that we had a few years ago, and I'm here at CISL because I in keeping with our subcommittee structure, I know that we typically come first to curriculum and instruction with any major changes or proposals to changes to curriculum. This is by no means meant to be a comprehensive discussion about this. We're very well aware that we'll be going forward and most likely moving from here to the committee of the whole so that we're engaging all of the members of the committee. But we wanted to take the opportunity first to sort of introduce it to this group and let you know what direction we're going and give opportunities for feedback here as we go, as we will throughout the process. So, and this is something that we believe is a much longer process, and tonight really is just the opportunity to kind of open the discussion and begin to have those conversations. So I'm going to start by bringing you back to the equity audit. Our equity audit, which was done over 3 years ago, I think, had several key findings that we have been utilizing as we do all of our work. And we looked at findings and we looked at recommendations. So some of the key findings that really play into some of the discussions and conversations and decisions that we have ahead of us really involve some of the equity around access and equity around opportunities. So these are some, I'm not going to ad nauseum go through them. You've all seen the equity audit before, but keeping in mind when we talk about advanced courses, which is something that we spent a lot of time in Beverly thinking about making sure that we can improve access to. 71% of white students take multiple advanced courses, while 49% of non-white students take multiple advanced courses. In Beverly, 29% of white students are not enrolled in any advanced coursework, where 51% of our non-white students are not enrolled in any advanced coursework. So that was some of the under-over racial disparities that we found when we delved into the advanced coursework data. Current achievement for growth scores in mathematics shows that there's an underperformance for all groups, but in particular Asian, Black, Latino, white, and economically disadvantaged. Those are sort of the groups that we look at when we start to go across subgroups and do comparisons. And while there's no specific disparity among the student groups, it's an area that we identified and continue to identify as an area of improvement for the middle school. And then finally, our economically disadvantaged students are underperforming their peers in almost all of our standardized testing measures. So, I mean, in general, that's what we call the achievement gap when we look at subgroups, and there are some groups of students that aren't performing as well as others. We found that when we did our equity audit. We continue to keep our eye on that, and we continue to work toward the different kinds of solutions so that we can make sure that we're providing access and opportunity and positive outcomes for all of our students. If you remember, we had some key recommendations that we took from that equity audit, and they included quarterly administrative staff discussions, perhaps within PLCs. At the time, we said we have a very well-established group of professional learning communities now. We call them critical friends groups in some levels. We call them grade level teams in others, content teams, but looking to discuss expectations that we have for minority students. A very strong strategic part of our strategic plan and our district improvement plan is the work around MTSS and UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning, which we acknowledge needs to continue to be expanded and to make sure that we're addressing the needs of all of our students at both middle and high school. And then finally, continuing to engage teachers, administrators, and other staff at all of the levels in professional development about cultural competency, diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-racism, and related issues. So these are not new recommendations. These are the recommendations from the original equity audit. So you might be wondering, why am I focusing heavily on that? And what is the link between this and our district improvement plan and sort of what we're kind of going forward in proposal tonight? I think one of the things that while we have been watching and measuring and identifying trends that were positive and seeing small steps of improvement in areas that we've been able to, to have growth, I don't think as a district, if we don't acknowledge and identify sort of the systemic factors that are barriers right now to student access and success, we're not going to be able to see the gains that we really want to see. Systemic factors really are those pieces that are that perpetuate mechanisms that don't allow us to kind of move forward. Sometimes they're thought of when in research as to look at sort of some of the standing pieces, schedule, how you do selection of courses, a lot of other, what you're offering, all of those things. Those are the systemic factors. And so we spent some time really digging into that. When you take a really close look at course offerings, course selections, the process of moving students through our system, particularly from grade 7 to 12, there's no denying that there's tracking going on. So we have a system in 6th grade right now where we begin to separate and sort students into different levels. So they're sorted into either advanced math or what is just general math. And that begins when they're in 6th grade. And that is, in essence, the definition of tracking, when we begin to identify students early on before it's really a time that developmentally they're ready for that kind of selection on their own of what direction they want to go in their pathways. So part of our proposal this evening is really relying on the research about detracking and what needs to happen as a reform strategy as we try to achieve equity. Whenever we look at research, it's really important, I think, that we're making sure that we're looking at current research, that we're looking at information. And there's a John Hattie. John Hattie is an educational researcher who's conducted meta-analysis on thousands of studies and the strategies that he believes, and he weighs and measures the strategies and how they lead to success. And this is just a quote. I always like to kind of have a piece of embedded in the presentation, but tracking has minimal effects on learning outcomes and profound negative effects on equity outcomes. So that's sort of one of our first reasons for taking a deeper look at this and some of the areas that we identified. There are a number of unintended consequences when you track in math, as we do, beginning in 6th grade. And I won't read this whole slide. There's a lot of content on it. But in essence, there's an inequality in perceived labels. Social stigmas prevail. So students learn very early on that they're considered to be in the smart group or the less than group. I was in a 4th grade class the other day, and students randomly were sorted into groups. And as they broke into groups, the comments were, oh, wait a minute, all the smart kids are over there. And so it's very evident that students begin very early to identify themselves as what their potential is at least perceived to be. There's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you do things like this. So if you begin being labeled as a low achiever, you internalize this label, and the performance is has a detrimental effect on performance. There are limited opportunities, and so our data shows, if you remember in our equity audit, particularly the data around the percentages of students that are either taking all advanced courses or all lower or all non-advanced courses, we reduce the access to advanced content for students when we begin tracking. And lower track students have limited access to advanced math content as they go through the years. That decision being made in 6th grade has a really detrimental impact to their pathway as they go through the rest of their high school years.
So what you're describing are policies that the education system was doing, irrespective of race. It was based on performance. Is that right?
No, based on recommendation sometimes, and perception and perceptual, perceptual information or
What you're
request.
describing is just sort of a
parents.
change in the way the policies are moving to make sort of advancement more accessible. Is that
Yeah.
what you're just describing?
Yeah, and I think what I'm saying right now is sort of laying out what the research is telling us too, right? This isn't just a Beverly only problem. This is what research has said. There's a lot of information available about what happens when students are tracked into particular pathways early on in their academic careers. So. Research will tell us that as you look at these classes, teacher expectations are differentiated. So there is research that shows, and I'm not saying that any particular teacher in Beverly or any particular class right now, but there is a tendency for teachers to employ different teaching methods and have lower expectations for students who are in lower tracks. And then also there's a rigidity in placement. And again, that's another thing that I think we see in our data when we look deeply into our equity audit and at the data that as it exists, that once students are placed in a track, there's limited flexibility or movement between tracks. And
So I happen to have come from a family that was low income. Mm-hmm. I was put into this general path, and it was a teacher that noticed
push you
that
through.
I should.
That's awesome.
So
And that's what we hope will happen.
that's what should happen.
That's what should happen, and that's what we hope would happen. Right, but it doesn't always happen.
Well,
That's what we would hope would happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean, so there's going to be more. So let me finish through and then
Yeah.
I'll come back to that because it's not, this is just one side of the conversation. This
Yeah.
is just equity. We're talking about, we're in Beverly, we've made a commitment to taking a look at what's equitable and what works. And this is just one side. I have another whole set of research that's going to talk to the math portion of it. So I think you'll find that interesting as well. So let me move forward to that and then we can go forward. And timely, that's my next slide. So, so as I just described that, so there is sort of some equity research and research around equity, and that shows that we need to really be careful if we're tracking students through our educational system. The second in particular that we've been spent a lot of time looking into is the research in math. And so the current research, this is NTCM, a lot of the mathematical associations, the educational associations that are taking a very close look at what's happening within math instruction, that it's clear on 2 points. The first point is that asking students to complete 3 years of math in 2 years in grades 7 and 8, so they take Math 7, Math 8, and Algebra 1, combining all 3 years into 2 years deprives the students of a solid foundation in algebra. And it is universally identified that Algebra 1 is probably the most important year of mathematics and sets a foundation of success for students as they go forward. And the second piece is that, and we think, and this is really where a lot of our work has gone, we're thinking about what is the intended pathways for math? What is the purpose for math? How are you going to use it? What are you thinking about for outcomes after high school? And whether your outcome for your student's intended pathway is Calculus BC, or a focus on data science culminating in statistics, or a general quantitative math pathway that's necessary for many other career opportunities, a solid foundation in Algebra 1 is a crucial element. What we are seeing in our data is that our students may not be accessing that solid foundation when they're asked to complete 3 years of math in 2 years, particularly following the pandemic, at which time, if you look back, they've had about a 1.5 year gap as well. So this is also some more research on accelerating math in middle school and some of the barriers that might grow and some of the concepts that might get in the way. So limited time for concept mastery. So when you're accelerating the curriculum, it means that students have less time to thoroughly grasp foundational concepts. Sometimes there's a skipping over of key principles in a rush to cover more advanced material, and it can hinder a student's overall understanding of mathematics. There's reduced focus on applied skills. So an accelerated curriculum might prioritize theoretical concepts over practical real-world applications. And this can hinder students' ability to apply mathematical knowledge to solve everyday problems and think critically. As we acknowledged earlier, there are growing achievement gaps. So accelerating math can exacerbate existing achievement gaps. Students who may have struggled with remote learning or have faced other challenges during the pandemic may find it hard or difficult to keep up with the accelerated curriculum, and it leads to wider disparities in achievement. And then finally, again, increased stress and anxiety. Accelerating math may lead to increased stress and anxiety among some students. Pressure to grasp advanced concept at a faster pace is overwhelming, and especially considering the challenges that they faced during the pandemic. So these are just some of the key points that we're considering as we go into, we take on this process of taking a look at what is our vision for math and what works for math in the Beverly Public Schools. So just to sort of summarize, I think one of the things that we want to do, our goals are really to ensure that students have a solid foundation in Algebra 1 and that it informs their mathematic pathways throughout high school. We know that detracking would increase equity, and we believe that providing all students a solid foundation in Algebra 1 will strengthen the outcomes of students in advanced courses. These are just some of the findings that we have had as we've begun this work, taking a look at data, looking at research, trying to kind of really decide what is the best path forward for us as we go, as we look at our math pathways and as we revision some of those math pathways.
And we even have a group K-12 that's working together on
Yep.
our math vision, so
Yep.
that it's not just,
Yep.
we're not just starting with the middle school, we want to have a solid pathway to high.
So again, my purpose tonight was to come forward and begin the conversation really about some of the things that we're working on and some of the research that we're looking at and some of the ideas that we have been working through and floating through. Do you want to ask before I do the read? Okay, so these are just our next steps. We just sort of really want to make sure that we're beginning this process of sharing information with and receiving feedback from stakeholders, faculty, students, and families. We want to visit some communities that have successfully detracked students and find out what has worked for them, what obstacles they may have come up against. We're going to continue to work with our consultants. We have a grant, and we have been working very closely in the middle school with a group called TNTP. And if I knew what that meant, I'd tell you, but I'm not really sure what the New Teacher Project. Thank you, Andre. And they have been working very closely with our math department at the middle school, with our director of STEM curriculum, James Grocky, and Mrs. Oliver, and with the math teachers within the school. And this is a year-long opportunity that we have as we take a look at that. It involves both assessing the strengths and challenges that we face within our math curriculum, as well as providing professional development to strengthen our teachers' instruction in the math area. We hope to come back to present some recommendations to the school committee in February. We have still some work to do. We're not here tonight to say we have the perfect answer to everything, but we're here tonight to say that we are beginning this work and we're looking very closely at it. And then finally, to address any misconceptions, I know I've had some feedback directly from some of the people that have heard this. We are not standing here tonight telling you that we're not going to have honors or AP math in grades 10 through 12. Our intent is to take a look at what those levels look like and what the right place for to begin that selection of students choosing advanced coursework. This is not something that we're doing tomorrow. We have a timeline where we're targeting September of 25 as a beginning point for when this would take effect. And so, again, that's our goal, is to come to you in February with some of our recommendations that we have come up with based upon the work that we've done. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think for our future meetings, one area of interest is that this potentially could impact the scheduling at the high school for students, and where math has strong correlations to music, to sciences, and to the other arts, the visual arts, performing arts. I wonder what the implication would be, whether it would actually provide more opportunity for students with a delayed algebra to access the music courses, or if it would perpetuate some of the restrictions and some of the reasons our musicians end up dropping music or the fine arts.
So I love that question, and I appreciate it. I know that Mark is working really hard with a team of teachers. This is not something that we're doing in isolation, in terms of what are the potential opportunities as well as potential unintended consequences, right? We always want to weigh through them. That's why we're not rushing into anything. That's why we are working with stakeholder groups and bringing them forward to kind of take a look at what that would mean. I will say one area that we looked very closely within the math pathway itself was to ensure that we had a pathway for students whose eventual outcome is Calculus BC, right? That is the culminating sort of course for mathematics, if you are really sticking. And so, that is a priority for us to make sure that we have that, make sure that there's an opportunity for a pathway that really strengthens students that want to go into the sciences, whether that is an increased emphasis on data science or on some of those things, as well as making sure that we have a pathway that provides that 4 years of math for those occupations that might be looking at the need for a more quantitative approach, to mathematics.
And I want to add one more ask onto my request for future meetings, is to evaluate the 84-minute block, the Panther Pride schedule, and whether a change to that schedule could allow for more opportunities of blended days between challenging classes and maybe the fluffier classes, so that there is room in the schedule and that it's not, creating a situation where you get all your math and science on one day, or, all
Right,
your.
yeah.
gym and culinary arts on the
So
next.
I think
But-
a lot of those are considerate, our goal and our plan is to just look at all of the different, opportunities and implications as we go forward. And so I know that that's all part of it. I think the work it's a combined effort with both Mrs. Oliver and Mr. Thomas, because it really is, we're looking more closely at that as a aligned K to 12 and then 7 to 12, and what does that look like and what does that mean?
So I think the rigor and you didn't say the words bringing the joy back to math, but to
Yes.
remove the increased stress and anxiety, I feel that students maybe have less joy when they have, a rigorous and expedited math experience. But also I think, just how to have balance in a given school day, I think is really important. And making sure that kids can take the classes they want to take, not what the schedule will allow, I think is really important for us to consider.
I think one of our big focuses, particularly with the work that we're doing K to 12, is taking a look at mathematics and the feel of math in the classroom, and allowing every person to see themselves as a mathematician, and the applications of math and what that looks like and how that works, and rather than just a bunch of worksheets that come
Right.
across
I
your
appreciate
desk, so.
your real world use of the concepts. I think that's really important for it to be sticky and engaging. But
And I think that links to your comment about joy. That's the
Yes.
piece when they can do an applied or real-world solution with math. That's when the joy comes,
Okay.
and they
Doc-
have fun.
Dr. Silva, I saw your hand, I believe.
Oh, you need your mic. Is it on?
I was math and science in high school, but really didn't appreciate it until in undergrad, where I had professors that were able to help us apply it, and that's when it really sunk in.
Yeah.
So
And we're really working on
making
that
efforts
application.
to do that in the high school
Yeah.
earlier.
And with third grade, fourth grade, we're trying to make those applications early.
When I was in high school, I would not consider myself a good math student, and I use math all the time now, and I'm pretty good at it. So I just, it was that applied piece, right?
Yeah.
So when it had a purpose.
Yeah.
But I do think the misconceptions are really important, and as we go through this process, there'll be lots of questions, and we're hopeful, we are welcoming those questions, and hopefully we can provide whatever information people are looking for as far as that goes. So
stay tuned. There'll be
yeah,
lots.
stay tuned. Anyway, we just wanted to make sure that we were coming forward and sort of opening the conversation. The next time will probably be less of me and more of them, which is always good. And so we'll. It may be a series of presentations, but we want to make sure I have a group of people who are really committed to making sure that we strengthen our math instruction in our school and make our math opportunities. We want to strengthen it for all students, and that includes our students who are aiming for Calculus BC and really have math as a passion, as well as opening up doors of opportunity for kids in either that may not have ever seen themselves as having that as an opportunity. So that's our commitment.
I have one more ask. I think that we need to evaluate the role of Alex in our
I've had
program
that, I think
of
you've asked that
studies.
before. I have that on a couple of notes.
Yeah, because
Disabled.
it does seem to be a little bit of a
Thank you.
a joy sucker.
All right.
Anyway.
Thank you.
The only other comment I'd make is you had talked about tracking, and it's been replaced with pathways.
No, so I think that I'm so glad you said that.
Well, I mean, I'm just
Yep. You're thinking of it, but there's two different concepts, right?
yes, I understand that. Yeah.
So tracking happens when early on
Yes.
someone else determines
Yes.
where you go for math. A pathway is when you, as a student and as
Gravitate
an
towards.
engaged person in the process, choose, and
Yes.
it makes sense to where you're going.
Yeah, I'm
So-
just bringing this up because I think you have to be careful that that teachers and the administration understand that that's what it is, and it's not
Yeah.
a renaming of tracking, and that there is a periodic check to make sure that a child is not in the wrong pathway or the wrong track, right? So that there's efforts to adapt whatever that pathway might have been set to a different pathway depending on their competency and their desire to, in terms of the classes that they like.
And I will say that the direction that the group is going and the information and the research around sort of unleveling in the early grades lends to the opportunity to choose the right kind of math for yourself later and to avoid some of that. So I appreciate that. And tracking is a word that a lot of people don't like that word, right? They don't want to say, oh, we track in Beverly. Tracking has a very negative connotation in the outside world of education, right? And so, and the truth is, if we aren't honest with ourselves that that's what we're doing when we do this in 6th grade and find a way to eradicate the barriers that we're putting up for some of our kids, then we're not going to make the gains that we hope that we'll make. So more to come on that and the direction that we're going, and I appreciate all the feedback. So thank you.
Thank you for the early heads up. Noting the time, I would like to make a motion that we adjourn the curriculum
just-
instruction and student life. Oh,
One
more,
last thing.
One more thing. Okay.
Happy holidays?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just wanted to close out the meeting. This is, November and December. There are a lot of various holidays that happen, both religious and cultural, throughout our communities. And as I was kind of thinking and looking through a lot of them, instead of trying to list them, we would leave something off, right? So just wanting to acknowledge that this is a time of year where there are many celebrations that happen, but the one thread that comes in common is that it's a time to celebrate with family and friends, and hopefully that many of us will get that opportunity. And for those where the holiday time is a difficult time, we hope that you're kind and kind to yourself and find some joy somewhere within the season. And we wish everybody a happy new year.
Thank you so much.
And now we can adjourn.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Dr. Silva. All of those in favor? 5-0. We're adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good.
Welcome, everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 13th of December, 2023. This is a regular meeting of the Beverly School Committee. I actually printed the script that I normally read, and I left it on the printer this evening, so I'm going to ad-lib a little bit. We are meeting in a hybrid fashion this evening, where we are using a remote meeting platform that is provided to our district at no cost. This allows for remote public access as well as participation of members. And this is allowed under the acts of 2020, and it was amended a bunch of times, and our current governor and legislature readopted the provision that allows public bodies to use technical methods to allow safe public access and allows participants to be remote. That provision will last through March 31st of 2025. And we also in Beverly do have permission through the Attorney General's office to have remote participants on our public city boards and commissions. Although with that permission, the chair and a quorum need to be physically present. We do have a quorum physically present, and I am the chair, so we are covered on both fronts. I will do a quick roll call so that we can recognize all of those participating, both in the room and online. I'm just going to go alphabetically. Mayor Cahill.
Here.
Kimberly Coelho.
Here.
Dr. Kenan Mackenzie DeFranza.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Silva.
Here.
And Ms. Visnick will be arriving momentarily. She's finishing a class. And I am Rachel Abel. Ms. Robinson, I'm sorry, forgot R.
Here.
R. Okay. We are also joined by our superintendent, Dr. Suzanne Chirocek.
Here.
Our executive secretary, Donna Bergeron.
Here.
Our student representative, Delia Gauker.
Here.
We have in the room Principal Mark Thomas, Principal Lisa Oliver, Director of Personnel People Services. I really have to learn all of these long titles. Bethany Splansky. We have Assistant Superintendent Dorothy Flaherty. We have Dr. Andre Morgan, Ms. Erin Brown, and Ms. Jean Sherburne. Here. Okay, and then we have a great audience this evening, including some of our educators as well. So we will get right to the agenda. First item of business is to state that we will have an opportunity to address the body for our resident voice in just a few moments. If you hadn't done so, there is a sign-up sheet that apparently is moved. If you wanted to sign up for that, you can see Ms. Bergeron, and we will get to that momentarily. But let us lead with the Pledge of Allegiance, and if I could ask Ms. Coelho to lead us this evening, I would appreciate it.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Dr. Churchak and Mr. Thomas, I believe we have some students here that are worthy of some recognitions, if you wouldn't mind.
So I'm just going to turn this around. Raise it up for you, and there you go. Now you can, we can take it. All right. So I'm just going to say welcome and thank you for coming, and this is super exciting. I think one of the best parts is we get to spend this year celebrating our seniors, and I was able to be there as we had the breakfast the other day, and now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Thomas.
Good evening. As Dr. Trocek mentioned, we did have a breakfast honoring these students last week, and that was a great way to start the day for us. Tonight we want to honor three different groups here. Our AP Scholars with Honors. This award is presented by the College Board and granted to students who receive an average score of at least 3.25 on all AP exams taken in scores of 3 or higher on 4 or more of these exams. These students are Zachary De Silva Grandin, Gabrielle Girard, Carly Jones, Owen McCarthy, Lila Pasquarello, and Riley Reardon. Any in attendance can come on up. Congratulations again.
In a special way, you get a little special surprise, which is really awesome.
very
There you go.
much.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Next, we have our AP Scholars with Distinction. This award is presented by the College Board and granted to students who receive an average score of at least 3.5 on all AP exams taken, and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more exams. These students are Mia Bellotti, Ryan Haberlin, Seva Kitov, and Jenna Schweitzer.
Oh, yes, you will, and you can look like you have a real treat for him.
You can take them out for dinner. And our final honoree tonight, National Merit Commendation. Of the 1.5 million eligible students who take the PSAT and MSQT across the country, only about 34,000 of the highest scoring students will receive recognition. Commended students are recognized for the exceptional academic promise demonstrated by their outstanding performance on the qualifying test. This year, the College Board has named Daniel Norris as the National Merit Scholarship Commended Student. Congratulations, Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
At this time, the school committee will take a 3-minute brief recess to congratulate our scholars. Thank you. Okay, we are back, and I want to thank our student representative, Delia Gauker, who is now going to give her report.
Thank you. The BHS community has been grieving the loss of our wonderful classmate and friend, Molly.
Why don't we try that again?
Again, we'll start with our student report.
Thank you, Mrs. Abel. The BHS community has been grieving the loss of our wonderful classmate and friend, Molly Spiritigliosi. The music department has especially felt this loss, but has been supporting each other in every way we can, and the students appreciate the things the school has done to support people the best they can. Let's all take a moment of silence to think about our beloved friend and community member. While this has been extremely challenging for the school, we still continue to celebrate the wonderful things our school has accomplished, both before this and continuing on. 2 weeks ago, the Stage Right Drama Club put on an incredible production of Frankenstein Among the Dead. Drama Fest auditions happened last week, and musical auditions were yesterday. The BHS Winter Concert will be held at BHS next Tuesday, featuring the concert band, jazz band, string ensemble, and 3 choral groups. Winter sports season is continuing with practices and games. The Interact Club is hosting a networking night tonight for jobs and internships. And many seniors have received their college acceptances, and North Shore Community College has hosted on-the-spot admissions at BHS. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your report, and our hearts are with all of you in the music department. Thank you so much. I know you have a lot of homework. I appreciate you sticking out for the second meeting, and we will see you in January. Have a good holiday and Happy New Year. Thanks. Our next order of business will be the approval of the meeting records from our 15th of November meeting. I'm looking for a motion to
So
approve.
moved.
Thank you, Mayor Cahill.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Ms. Coelho, sorry. I heard a voice to my right. There we go. And are there any amendments, corrections that we would like to put forward? I'm not seeing any, so I will call the roll. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick is still absent. She will be joining us soon. And Ms. Abel, yes, that's 6. And those records will now be made available on our website. The next agenda item is an open forum for resident voice. This is to provide input on agenda-related items or to bring to the table other items. Again, we have an email address where you can send your comments before 7 p.m. It's residentvoice@beverlyschools.org, or you can sign up. Ms. Bergeron, did we have anyone sign up this evening?
Not tonight, no.
Not this evening. Thank you. Moving along, item 6 on our agenda is items by consensus. We have warrants listed A, B, C, D, and E this evening, and they each have corresponding dollar amounts. I would entertain a motion to approve. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Didn't throw your voice that time. Okay. We don't generally have any questions, but I'll just pause briefly. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Visnick is still absent, and Ms. Abel, yes. 6-0. And now to the superintendent's report, and I am so grateful to see a couple educators are here, so why don't you present your recommendations?
So, just an overview, this evening I'm going to be, thank you, sorry. This evening I'll be making recommendations for 2 field trips, an overnight field trip to Austria, Germany, and an overnight field trip by the German department to New York City. And then we'll be looking, I just informationally shared out with you and see if you have any questions on the Northeast Consortium's annual report. So I have here the trip. The first trip is an overnight field trip to Austria and Germany, and I have Mrs. Andrews here, and the superintendent recommends approval of the proposed BHS overnight field trip to Austria, Germany, Switzerland, and France.
Yes.
Four.
Yes. So this would be for German and French students.
For German and French students. So you want to just give a little update, a little information about what you're planning, what the trip is about, and then if there's any
Absolutely.
questions, the committee can ask you questions.
Okay. So the trip is planned for April of 2025, so a little over a year away. We would fly into Vienna and then travel by bus from Vienna through Munich, Switzerland, and Paris. This is open for current students of German and French, so as long as they're in the class this year, they could travel next year, even if they don't continue with their language studies. The trip cost goes up periodically, but I think the last time I looked at it, it was, let me see, I have it right here, $5,800. So that is subject to change as it gets closer. Parents can secure that amount by putting in a deposit. And that's why we wanted to give as much time as we could so that parents can plan for that higher trip cost.
Mayor Cahill,
You want to go?
go ahead.
Hi, and
Hi.
thank you. So, quick question.
Yes.
If you can take 16 students with the two of you teachers who are planning to go.
Yes.
If there were more interest than that,
Yes.
how many more would need to be interested for a third chaperone? Because I know that there's where the additional cost per student goes.
Yes.
What would you do if there was just a bit more interest than 16, and what would you do if there was significantly more? And is where does the ratio come in? Is that a requirement of the organization that you're? Yeah.
Yes. So the company has one free chaperone for every 8 students. So we would need to get to 21 for a third free chaperone.
Gotcha.
There is plenty of interest among staff to travel at a small cost if we need a third chaperone to pay.
I got you. So let me ask a kind of a related question. Suppose you have more interest in 16, but it doesn't hit the threshold for a third paid chaperone. Would you do that with 2 chaperones? Or does that become too much of a rate? I mean, it's a bit arbitrary, the 8, in terms, I think you could handle more students than that is my point. I think it's the cost factor, and it's sharing the cost of the chaperone across enough students.
Yeah, I've taken 20 students with 2 chaperones, and I didn't feel overwhelmed with that amount. That was for an exchange instead of a trip like this.
Right.
We also have a tour manager who meets us in Vienna and travels with us throughout the entire trip. So there is that third adult. Not affiliated with the school, it won't be disciplining or anything like that, but it is just a third set of eyes.
Okay.
So that person is along for the trip.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I think my question was similar. If you had gauged interest amongst the students, if you thought 16 was reasonable.
Yes.
Okay. And would the trip be in jeopardy if you had fewer than 14 students, or has to be 16?
We would have to amend the itinerary if it's fewer than 20, but we could still run the trip with at least 11 kids.
Okay. Are there other questions from the committee? Dr. Silva.
Is there fundraising that's happening with this?
They can fundraise. I let the students plan fundraisers. Yep, and help them with the administrative side of that.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have a recommendation from the superintendent, Mayor Cahill.
Move to approve it.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Silva. We have a motion on the table to approve the trip to, I don't want to leave a country out. It was Austria, Germany, Switzerland, and France for April of 2025. Any further discussion?
I just want to say these can be amazing experiences for the students, and I really appreciate your enthusiasm and willingness to do it. My late mother was a French, Spanish, and German teacher at Beverly High and took Beverly High students to Europe about 10 or 11 times.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. And I heard you were in Catherine Spolster's class earlier, and she's enjoying the
Yes.
trips as well. So
Yeah.
she's excited.
That was
to
a great
join as well.
class.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. I believe we have to do a roll call vote, and I will call the roll. Mayor Cahill.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Visnick is still absent. Ms. Abel, yes. Enjoy your trip.
Thank you.
And if you need
Thanks,
that third
everybody.
chaperone, I took a little of both languages.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay. Let's see.
And then
think
I
we
have-
another
Yes.
exciting overnight field trip.
We do. Hi, sorry, I'm just going to kind of pull this up. This is an overnight field trip to New York City, and the superintendent recommends the approval of the proposed BMS overnight field trip to New York City. And Katrin is here to walk us through and tell us all about it. And I have your slides if you want. I can just give me a thumbs up, and I'll make sure I go to the next slide when you need to. All right, thank you.
Yeah, so my name is Katrin McManus. I'm the German teacher at Beverly Middle School.
You push
Oh,
the
you have to
button
push
on
the
that.
button until it's green. Just push it once.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let me say it again. So I'm Katrin McManus. I'm the German teacher here at the middle school. I teach grades 7 and 8. And so this field trip that I'm proposing would include both of those grades. I would want to take my 7th and 8th graders. The idea is to take them on a trip to New York City, kind of on the heels of the history of German immigration to the U.S., but specifically in New York City. And students will have guided tours of important historical sites related to German immigration. So, for example, Ellis Island. We also have a tour of the East Village, which used to be called Klein Deutschland because it had, so Little Germany, because it had like the highest number of Germans outside of Germany at some point in the early 19th century. This trip would be in May 2024. It would be a 3-day trip. Sorry, if you could go to slide 2. Yeah, so departing Thursday, May 16, and coming back to Beverly on Saturday, May 18. Slide 3, please. Yeah, so these are some highlights. So Little Germany in the East Village, a tour of the United Nations, a dinner, 2 dinners actually at a German restaurant, a visit of the Goethe Institute in New York City. So the Goethe Institute is the cultural kind of representative outside of Germany. So they, it's a cultural center. They have a library, a media center. They have different events that they put on. They offer German classes. They're usually staffed with native German speakers. We would visit the Empire State Building. And then there are also, again, Ellis Island, Liberty Island, I've already mentioned. And then there are some other, like New York City specific things that I would like to sprinkle in. So I would like, if possible, for them to see a Broadway show. They would visit the 9/11 Memorial. So those would be more, general educational events, but the focus of this trip would be German immigration to the U.S. I think the next couple of slides are pictures of some of the sites, and then we could go to slide 6, please. So this is what's included in the quote that we'll go over shortly. It would be a 2-night hotel stay. There's a tour manager and city guides that would, provide the tours for us. We would take a bus there and a bus home. All admissions, 2 breakfasts, 2 dinners. Lunch would be separate. and then all taxes, fees, and tips. And then I think the next slide has the pricing. So there are, depending on how many students would sign up for this trip, the price could be anywhere between $860 for around 42 students to $1,200 for 21 students, which is why I would love to take both of my grades, because my German contingent is always the smallest language at BMS. And this one would be with a Broadway show, and then the next slide has the same option without a Broadway show. That would make it a little bit cheaper, so I want to make it accessible for as many students as I can to keep it equitable. So, I would kind of see what the interest level is. Is this something that many students can do, or does it present a hardship for students? And then we would kind of take it from there. And we can, this is just, the company I would go through, they're called Hummingbird Student Tours. They've been doing this for a while. I have communicated with them, and I know one of the people who is organizing this is also a German teacher, so I've been in touch with her through my German teacher Facebook group as well. So I know a little bit about them, and they're a great company to go through. I think, they just have a registration portal to make it easy for parents to have everything in one spot. They'll have, they can make different payments. There's insurance that you can purchase for the trip. Those are kind of the more administrative parts. Yeah, that's the travel protection part. Any questions about this?
Go ahead, Mayor Cahill.
Can I move approval first?
Sure.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Ms.
I
Robinson.
thank you so very much. I think you heard
Thank you.
some of what we said to your predecessor from the high school. These are exciting opportunities for our students. I appreciate your interest and willingness to do this. We certainly will want for the kids to have some fundraising opportunities to defray costs, and also, if there's a need for outright scholarshiping, I would encourage looking into that. I'm not sure what we have in place with, with BevEd, with PTO, et cetera, but certainly that, I'm with you. I'd love to see every one of your students go.
Me too, and I know that the French teacher, Mrs. Lomas, who's taking her students to Quebec City, they've been fundraising, and, we talk a lot, so, I have some ideas that have been working well for her, and I agree with you. I would love to take every one of them, and I think it's a great, I think the Europe trip sounds amazing. And I love that they're getting to do that at the high school. I think for the middle school, something a little bit closer is great. They're kind of getting their feet wet. For those kids who haven't traveled a ton, they get out of Beverly. They see, I think it's exciting. I think it's a great, some of my best memories are from traveling. So I'd be happy, I'm excited to take them if it sounds like something that is admissible. Yeah.
Thanks.
Dr. Silva, did I see your hand?
No, I'm all set.
One question I have, I know that the high schoolers recently went to New York, and as a means to save some money and to incorporate some things they had in their schedule, they stayed out in New Jersey. I wasn't quite clear if you were staying in the city through this tour, or if you would have ferries and long bus.
This one would be in the city.
It would be in the city, okay. And so that probably explains a little bit more of the cost.
The cost,
factor.
yeah. I mean, that's actually a really good point. So if, I'm finding that this is cost prohibitive for folks, then I can definitely suggest that to Hummingbirds, and see if that is something that they would consider.
The trade-off, though, I think, is the transportation
right,
and
we're only going
inconvenience.
we would only be going for, it would be a day there, would do some activities, then a full day and then another day. But it's something to consider for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there other questions? I'm looking online. Okay, we have a motion on the table to accept the superintendent's recommendation to send our German students at the middle schools, grades 7 and 8, on a May 2024, which is pretty soon, trip to New York City to have experiences with German immigration, guided tours, and some other experiences that will also give them the opportunity of travel. Okay. No further comments. I will call the roll. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza? I think you're on mute.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Visnick is still absent, and Rachel Abel, yes, 6-0. Enjoy your trip.
Thank you so
Again,
much.
let us know if you need
Appreciate
an
it.
extra chaperone.
And then I just have one final item, and it's really more informative. I think you received in your documents the annual report from the North Shore Consortium. We just as a point of view, we distribute these out every year. Fran Rosenberg, who's the executive director of the North Shore Consortium, puts it together. It really is for your information purposes. I didn't know if anyone had a chance to review it. If you had any questions, I'll probably defer them to Bethany. But other than that, if there's any questions, then, that's just in your packet. And we want to make sure that the school committee has an opportunity to see all the great things that are happening over at the North Shore Consortium.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Trocek. I want to just very quickly bring forward the update for our organizational meeting. It will be held after the inauguration, right in the high school at 2 p.m. So we will have that on our calendar. I also know that Finance and Facilities and Committee of the Whole next week have been canceled so that we can partake in all of the wonderful holiday events we have ongoing in our district, including concerts and athletic events. So do update your calendars accordingly. I also wanted to follow up on an action item I took out of one of our earlier meetings where we are to call for citizen representatives for our new term. I followed up on Mayor Cahill's request to find out if we could change citizen to resident if we so wished. And I did find that our assistant solicitor is working on a project with our city council at the moment to go through and find opportunities to be more inclusive. And certainly it is within our purview as we do our policy work to go ahead and change our policy to state resident. Although there were a couple of questions that were brought to the table. And I think just a couple reminders we need to have is that our resident members are non-elected members. And so for the voting, like what we do at CISL with our students and our citizen reps, soon to be resident reps, if that's what we choose, they vote, but it's actually not an official vote because they're not an elected member of the body or the subcommittee. So we just need to be a little bit more clear on that. I think that with our policy adoption, we have it all right in our policy. But I also did a little research with our Massachusetts Association of School Committees liaison, Dorothy Presser, and we are unique in our inclusion of members of the public in our subcommittees. So there is a question if we want to continue to have student, citizen or resident representatives on our standing committees. It's something that we can all ponder. We don't have to make any decisions tonight. I think what I presented with our updates is consistent with our past practice, but certainly something that I would want to know if this committee wants to change it to resident, if we want to make it more clear that the votes are non-binding on non-elected members. And I guess if there's any other questions that we need to consider, but it does seem that we have it within our purview to go ahead and change citizen to resident if we so wish. Okay. Okay. So we can bring that forward at another time or in a of the policy subcommittee to change our policy on which this is based. Okay?
Sounds great. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Your first point about the organizational meeting,
Mm-hmm.
what time did you say for that?
I'm posting it for 2:00. I know that the event starts at noon. It generally runs a certain amount of time. It will be in the library, so when we go up to the library, it will be posted, and if we have to defer, we can, but it should not be a very long meeting.
I remember one year we did it that way, and we just went into that meeting room off of the main library.
Yep. I've arranged that with Mr. Thomas at the high school. So,
Thank
and that's
you,
how we
Madam
have it
President.
posted. Yes, that will free up our evening. Okay.
Look,
Just as I get to the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities report, I'm actually going to skip you for half a second while you get settled at the table. And I'm going to report out on the Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Life Standing Committee that just met prior to this regular meeting. We had our student representatives present information about all the great activities that are happening in our schools, and definitely check out the BevCam recording for some of those reports. But a significant portion of our time was spent on reviewing and moving forward for our committee of the whole to review different policies. We also had a presentation that is starting a conversation. Dr. Trocheck presented some initial information about math pathways and different items that are under consideration about our really K to 12, but focused on our 7-8 math pathways at the moment. Again, BevCam has recorded that, and we will have future conversations. I know the standing committee members that were here asked some questions of Dr. Trocheck for some more information as well, and that our administrators are continuing to do some work on thinking about our math pathways. We have with our packet tonight 5 policies that are coming forward for a first reading. We don't need to spend a lot of time unless there were any members that had any edits or changes or concerns about these policies at this time. We will have a second reading at our next meeting in January. Not seeing any of those. Ms. Visnick, are you ready for Finance and Facilities, or would you like me to? Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities last met on 11/29. We reviewed a number of policies, some of which are coming to you this evening for a first reading. Ms. Sherburne presented information on the revolving accounts and an ongoing effort to help the committee, as well as members of the public, understand our budget and the budget process. Most notably, she explained that the circuit breaker money can be carried over and used the following year. This year, we're actually using 38% of our circuit breaker money for FY24, and therefore that percentage will not be available as we begin to build the FY25 budget. Ideally, we would carry over 100%, and that's not possible this year, at least in part due to the 14% increase in OSD tuition rates. Our next meeting is supposed to be next week, and we have no pressing we have no pressing business. I was looking to make sure you still believe that to be true, Ms. Sherburne. Therefore, we are not going to meet next week. We will next meet in January. Okay, I kind of expected, I apologize, the agenda on the screen so I could call out the things that we're bringing forward.
Sure, I can call those out for you.
Thank you.
The first item for a second reading is policy DBC. This is budget, deadlines, and schedules. It was presented in our packet at our last meeting. And the motion for this, if you would like to make it, is the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities has recommended the attached policy DBC for a second reading requiring a 2/3 formal vote by the school committee.
Yes, that is the recommendation out of Finance and Facilities, and I would love to make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Were there any further edits or questions on this policy? Not seeing any, I will call the roll. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Visnick,
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes. 7-0.
I have my agenda now.
Okay. Go for it.
Thank you. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends the attached policy DD, not Dunkin' Donuts, but grants, proposals, and special projects for a second reading. This will require a formal 2/3 vote of approval by the school committee. This is my motion.
So moved.
Oh, is that a second or?
Second.
Okay. And you said DD, so this is funding proposals? I think we skipped one.
Grants, proposals, and special projects, DD, Dunkin' Donuts. No? I went out of order. I apologize.
Yes, and the version I have has a different title. Oh, I see. It said funding proposals.
Funding
is grant.
proposals and applications. You said grant proposals and applications.
I apologize. I'm reading off the agenda. So it is true that some of our policies have changed names, and I apologize. Clearly, I was here late this evening. I go to school on Wednesday night. So I'm running in from class, and I did not check that title. I didn't cross-reference the title. I believe the title on the printed policy in your packet is correct.
Okay. I think we have a motion if we have a friendly amendment to change the title. Right?
Fair. Yes.
Okay, so.
Second.
Okay. So we will say Ms. Visnick made the motion with a second by Mayor Cahill. Is that all right, Ms. Robinson? Okay. Okay. So we have a motion on the table for DD. And that's grants, proposals, and special projects. Any questions, concerns? Okay, I'll call the roll. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Visnick.
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes. I think we need to back up for DBD.
Yes, I'm going to moonwalk.
Okay.
I'm backing up. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends the attached policy DBD, David, budget planning for a second reading, and it will require a formal 2/3 vote of approval by the school committee. I would like to make the motion that we accept DBD.
A motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, I got Ms. Robinson because I had already written that last time. Okay. We have a motion on the table. It's been seconded. Are there any comments or concerns with this one? This edit seems straightforward. Call the roll. Mayor Cahill.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Visnick.
Yes.
And Ms. Abel, yes. 7-0.
All right, we're 2/3 of the way there, maybe. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends the attached policy DGA, Dorothy, Gail, Andrea, authorized signatures for a second reading and will require a formal 2/3 vote for approval by the school committee. That is my motion that we accept this policy.
We have a motion.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Silva. Any questions or concerns? Call the roll. Mayor Cahill.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Visnick.
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes. 7-0.
The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends the attached policy DH, David Henry, bonded employees and officers for a second reading. It will require a 2/3 vote, formal 2/3 vote for approval by the school committee. This is my motion that we accept policy DH.
We have a motion.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Any questions or concerns? Calling the roll. Mayor Cahill.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Visnick.
Yes.
Ms. Abel. 7-0.
The last one, here we go, people. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends the attached policy DI, as in Destination Imagination, fiscal accounting and reporting for a second reading. This would require a formal 2/3 vote for approval by the school committee. This is my motion.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Any questions or concerns? I'll call the roll. Mayor Cahill.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick.
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes.
That concludes my report from Finance and Facilities, Madam Chair.
Okay.
We still needed to gifts to schools.
Oh, my apologies.
No,
My
that's okay.
apologies.
Oh, right. Yeah, my apologies. There's gifts to schools totaling the amount of $20,500 for BHS STEM mini grant and PTO playground donation for heirs. And the recommended motion from the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities is to accept with gratitude this gift of $20,500. I will make that motion.
Second.
I thank you, Ms. Bisnick. With gratitude, I will call the roll. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick,
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Ms. Bergeron. Okay. So those are our two standing committees. For the negotiation subcommittee, as you are all aware, we sent a letter to Unit A and received a response from the BTA. We will be going into executive session to discuss the proposed dates and approach response. And for policy review committee, you haven't met, but you plan to try to meet. Is that accurate?
Right. I have made my executive decision as I'm wearing my policy chair hat that we're pushing that into the new year,
Okay.
Especially because MASC just put out a new policy newsletter. So that has to be reviewed, and rather than schedule a meeting and then have to schedule another one very quickly, I'm pushing them both into January.
Fair enough. And we will be reorganizing. Okay. The communications for school committee members, or from school committee members, is there anything that people wish to bring to the table in forms of communications? Seeing no hands, we will move on. The chair is now moving to vote to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for purposes 7 and 3, and not to return to open session. Purpose 7 will be to review and approve minutes from the executive session meeting of November 29th, 2023. And purpose number 3 is to discuss strategy with respect to and in preparation for collective bargaining with the BTA and our AFSCME units, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. We'll now conduct a roll call. Oh, I need a second on my motion. Thank you, Ms. Bisnick. We do require a roll call vote to enter into executive session, and I'm just writing everyone's initials here so I don't forget anyone. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick,
Yes.
and Ms. Abel, yes. That is 7-0. I will restate for the record that the chair has moved, has been seconded, and unanimously approved that we are moving to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for purposes 7 and 3, and we will not be returning to open session. Again, purpose 7 is to review and approve the minutes from our executive session meeting of November 29th, 2023. And purpose 3 is to discuss strategy with respect to and in preparation for collective bargaining with the BTA and the AFSCME units, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. The time is now 8:25. We want to thank our friends at BevCam for broadcasting us. We are going to switch over to a local option to continue our meeting. So Dr. Mackenzie, if you could stay online, and others, if you wouldn't mind dropping off.